Okay, so next thing what we need to discuss is exclusion, as we discussed, right? So exclusion could be the exclusion of the data set itself, exclusion of the language, exclusion of the culture related content, dialects altogether, right? Or as we told, the other languages, not Indo-European languages, African languages, and so on, and code switching. So most of the time, when it comes to social media, people use multiple languages. Let's say Hindi plus English, or some of the other native regional language they use, and they mix it with English. So it these kind of lingo, this kind of code switching, it is called code switching, and it is not represented well in the pre-training data. Then model will not be able to justice with this content, right? So will not be able to generate code switching kind of content, and it's not able to ingest also, not able to when you're using code switched format of prompt, it might not generate a very good result. And there are efforts to mitigate these things, and one of these universal dependencies, which is kind of parsing trees for low resource languages, and Maskane NLP, which is kind of catering to African languages, Swahili and so on, and it kind of generating data sets and training models for those African languages. Similar example is again from this Geol M Lama, which is from Dain et al. And what they are also doing, what they did, you have an English sentence, traditional blank wedding, the color of wedding dress is usually mask. So this X and mask, they are putting multiple things. So in X they put US, they put Indian wedding, Chinese wedding, and so on. And the mask also they're changing the color. So it could be red, could be white, could be green, could be black, right? So that your generation becomes region agnostic, you become region neutral, right? So there won't be any bias toward race, towards region, right? So that American people will wear only white, or Indian will only wear red, and so on, right? So that's what they are doing. They created a data set, and they are training a model to being more region agnostic, region neutral. This is another set of example where given a photo, let's say selected from web, and what we need to do, we need to find out the reasoning about the images, what is happening here. So what they did, rather than just reason about thing in Hindi, let's say, or maybe in regional language, let's say Telugu or Tamil, they want to reason in English, in French, in Chinese, and so on, so that model is not associating a particular kind of cue or context from the image with only a particular language. So it should be agnostic to language, which language. So it becomes more robust and language agnostic or language neutral, right? So also kind of culture is also taken care of, right? So it should not be pertaining to a particular culture, then it should be specific to a particular language. Okay, so one of the second last thing what we want to discuss is dangers of AI when we want to automate it, right? So there is one incident happened where Facebook had to apologize to a particular person who was belonging to a Palestine state, and what he did, he posted in his language, let's say, good morning, and their translator, their machine translation, it translated it to attack them and hurt them, and based on that, this guy was arrested, and then they got to know that there was a mistake, and so this created a kind of lots of chaos. Another example was Amazon. In Amazon, there was a recruiting tool which was AI based, let's say some sort of NLP, LLM based tool, and which was kind of giving less importance to women candidate, and also to the women college. So it was downvoting the women candidate CVs, and people who were from the women persons who were from women colleges, right? So it was bad, right? But why, if it is bad or not, right? So that is up to us to figure out whether this is bad or not. Why? Maybe the model learned this from the kind of recruitment history, right? So they have recruited multiple people, and they have a history that maybe women college people were not performing super well, but they cannot generalize it that all the people from women college will be downvoted, right? So that's the bias in the situation, right? Okay, so another example, which was this case was super famous, and one of the team, Timnit Gabru and so on, in Google, they were the Google employees, and they published a paper, they published a report, and which said that environmental cost is disproportionately borne by marginalized populations of LLMs. So LLMs require lots of money, right? Money, time, effort, and so on, and lots of hardware. And there is an environment cost also, right? So because of it producing heat, it is utilizing electricity, and the cost is borne by marginalized people. So that's their finding. And massive data is fundamentally challenged to audit. So they use lots of data, petabytes of data, and you cannot audit that data. You cannot filter out that amount of data, and so that's why biases will be kind of injected in. Maybe there are biases in the data which we cannot audit. The other thing, what they found out, that these models are not grounded, so they don't know the meaning of the words or meaning of the sentences, but they are just memorizing the co-occurrence between the symbols. That's their finding, and it's debatable what they are claiming here, but they kind of propose that, they claim that these models they don't know about the meaning what they are generating, let's say text generation, so they are not able to comprehend what they are generating. So biases can come into picture. So biases can also be there because they don't know what they are generating. Okay, so last thing one of the last thing what we want to discuss is unethical use of LLMs, and which is also super important aspect. So it could be used for surveillance, right? So government or some agency or military and so on, they want to maybe have a surveillance on masses, on public, and you are using AI systems, and inherently in a hidden way, they might be collecting data, they might be collecting your personal data, they might be collecting your behavior and so on. So how ethical it is, so whether it should be legalized or not, right? So that's the debate. And we have already discussed that misinformation thing. It can generate convincing news, which is misinformation, which is disinformation. But what if these were undetectable, right? So if they are undetectable, we are not able to detect that these are fake or versus true, then it has kind of very severe effect on the society and the whole narrative, social fabric of the society. Another example of unethical use could be anonymization. De-identification is the process, and can we reverse it back? So let's say for medical data, for your medical history and so on, they de-anonymize it before sharing it, before doing, let's say, ML model on top of it. So for the name, they change it, the sex, the gender, they change it, the dates they are changing, they are just obfuscate, they anonymize it. And if AI systems are able to recover this information from original data, that would be super bad, because it will reveal the confidential information about legal documents, confidential information about the medical documents, and then you cannot train it, you cannot have the data, personal data, right? So it will be a kind of a bottleneck for training a large amount of medical data, right? And what is the solution for it, like for these problems? So the solution, many people are working towards it, and they propose kind of a code of ethics. So this Hall Dume, he proposed a code ethics which you can refer to. And the points, there are several points, but the crucial point what they make is you need to have a reasonable effort to prevent misinterpretation of the results, make decisions consistent with the safety, health, welfare of the public. So it's kind of a best practices what needs to be done when it comes to training LLMs, deploying LLMs, collecting the data, or evaluating them, and so on. And lastly, Raji et al. In 2020, they kind of published a report closing the AI accountability gap, and they kind of identify multiple dimensions and what to do in those dimensions. So you can go through this in detail, this diagram. So like scoping, what should be the scope of your data, audit, and what should be the best practice and principles, right? Mapping to stakeholders, right? Mapping to conducting interviews to users and involving users, and collection of data set, artifact collection, evaluation, right? and then reflection on what do we get, the report, summarization of the report, and then audit, right? So we need to audit whether the biases are there, whether it is ethically produced, what are the sources, can we go back to the sources, whether the source attribution credit is given or not, right? So all these things need to be taken care of. So the last thing of this lecture, I want to discuss about how to use LLM ethically for research, right? So when you want to write a research paper, you want to do a review of the papers and so on. So what is the use of LLM? That is clear. You can rephrase it, rewrite, you can write the text, you can generate the text and so on. But what is the good use of LLM? What is the legal use of LLM when it comes to writing papers and doing research, right? So there are certain factors that reliability, whether these LLMs are reliable or not. So we have seen that given a prompt, it can generate very good text content. It can summarize pretty well, even better than humans. But whether they are reliable or not, they can hallucinate, right? So you cannot rely on LLMs all the time. And then accountability. Who is accountable for that, right? So you cannot add the LLM as a co-author in your paper because it is not accountable, right? Who is accountable, right? So whether the company who has trained the LLM accountable, whether the source of the data is accountable, right? So all these things are there. And then transparency. It generated a particular content, but we don't know why it is generated, what is the logic behind it, what is the reasoning behind it, we don't know yet because it's a black box. And attribution. Can we go back to the source of, so a particular sentence, we have already discussed this, for a particular sentence generated from the LLM, can we go back to the source of the data, what got utilized in generating this sentence, right? And credit, to give the credit to that source, right? Bias, which we have already discussed a lot today, and level playing field, whether having a smaller LM versus large LM play a role, right? So whether it's a level playing field or not. So, okay, so when it comes to writing research paper or conducting research, how can we use LLM? So what is allowed? So this is the policy given by ACL anthology, like ACL conferences. What is allowed is assistance purely with the language of the paper. So what you can do, you can rewrite some of the content. You have written a content, you can rewrite it. New content cannot be added by the LLM, right? Short form input sentences, you can add a half sentence. It can predict 1-2 words, that is allowed. But if it is writing a whole sentence altogether on its own, that is not allowed. Literature search, right? So literature search is allowed, but we need to be very careful about it because it can hallucinate and it can give you a kind of a hallucinated fake literature which is not there, which is not present. Low novelty text. So you are generating a text, that novelty of the text should be low. It should not be generating a whole concept, a new concept altogether. You can generate like what is LSTM, then you can generate from LLM, you can verify it whether it's generated or generated well or not. But you cannot generate a kind of improvisation on top of LLM, so LSTM, right? So you say that, can you improve LSTM? Tell me the definition of improved LSTM, right? So that is not good. New ideas, you should not get the new ideas from the LLM, and which is discouraged, right? So mostly it will be someone else's idea proposed as new idea. And new idea plus text, which is super no-go, right? So no-go zone, where you added a new idea, you are generating a new text, that is not allowed. So these things are not allowed at all, right? So what is the bottom line? Bottom line is, don't use LLM to create research, right? So it can lie, it can hallucinate, it doesn't know what is generating, right? So don't use LLM to create new ideas, generate new text, but use it for suggestions, right? So use it for rephrase, paraphrasing, and suggestions, right? So what is the technique, what is the other technique which is there, and then verify it. So you need to verify the same, right? So thanks a lot, and let's wind up this lecture. Thanks.